So I glued the wood piece inside each tube, and then I took it over to the table saw and kind of like chomped out these slots. I have a dado, and I could have loaded the dado in my table saw, but I think it would have took longer to load that than to actually just kind of nibble away at it, you know, in a saw thickness at a time. It didn't really take that long. Plus I had them taped together 2 at a time, as you saw before. So it was kind of a combination of both of those. So went pretty fast. And then, you know, filed this a little bit to make sure it's the right size. Then I went ahead and glued on the end plates, cleaned up a lot of the epoxy with some acetone, and then put it out here to put a clear coat on it. I went back and forth on the surface finish that I wanted, and you saw that I had sanded one piece, a sample piece, just to see how it looked. But I really wanted to go with the natural finish of the tubing, and just taking a razor blade and lightly taking off the glue, and with the acetone I was able to clean up and kind of keep the natural finish of the tube, which I thought looked really nice, and then just spray a coat of clear onto it, and that's what we're going to do next. Then once we put the last coat of clear on this and everything dries, then we're ready for some assembly, which should be pretty fun. I'm really anxious to see how this looks once it's assembled. Looks like it's coming out nicely, and should be pretty cool. Well, it looks like we're having some pretty good progress now. All the pieces are dry. I sprayed them all with a couple of coats of clear. I think they came out really nice. So I'm ready to glue those up as an assembly. And then I went to Home Depot and got this. I don't know, it doesn't seem like a big deal, I guess, but to me it's kind of a big deal to get a 4x8 sheet of plywood home in the car, and it's kind of heavy and big and hard to handle. Luckily, Lily came to Home Depot with me and helped me, and I have this for the shelf and the top. And so we'll get to work on that in a minute. But right now, what I want to do is mark the location of the top, or yeah, let's mark the location of the top. These are 1.5 inches in according to the plan. So I'm going to mark the 4 locations. These ones are easy. They just go right in the corner here. They just go right in the corner. So those will be pretty easy to glue up. And I got some new clamps, some nifty new little clamps that I'm going to use. And so let's get started. So as I said, the plan calls out for these to be 1/2 inch, 1.5 inches from the edge. So what I'm going to do is just carefully kind of mark these, and we'll do that 3 more times. So let's just go ahead and mix up some epoxy, and we're going to kind of coat it right in this joint here, and then clamp them in. And now that I have the wood backups in here, it's going to really increase the surface area that I'm gluing, which I think is going to make things a lot stronger than if I just didn't do anything. I don't really have to put too much. I think that was one of the mistakes I made before when I was first working with the epoxy, is that I was just putting so much, like more is better kind of thing. But I really think just the right amount. You don't really have to put that much. And then this placement is easy because it just goes right in the corner. Okay, some time has passed. So after a little bit of fiddling and a lot of scraping of glue, I think I have it nicely clamped up. Boy, I'm really glad that I bought these new clamps because I really would have been SOL. And I already have glue on that one, so that's good. It's so easy to get a little glue on your hand, and then it gets on this, and then it gets on that, and then it gets on that and that, and pretty soon you've got epoxy everywhere. And you're like, ah, how do I do this? So it's really hard to kind of keep everything clean as you're trying to keep it straight and the right dimension and lining everything up. But I think I got it. I checked for square, and more or less it's, you know, in the ballpark of being square. And that's kind of how it's going to sit. So I think that's good. I have a couple of sections of glue that I think I'm going to do with the, try to get out with the razor blade once it dries rather than wipe it. But yeah, I think that's looking great. It's nice and flat on the workbench, and I think that just about makes that done. I'm going to be getting my feet, the little feet that I ordered from Amazon. I'm going to be getting those in a couple of days, and so I'll be able to put those on the bottom, and then I think that's about it for the base. So let's start on the top. I can't stop looking at it. It's just so cool looking. I think that is really neat. I'm so happy with the way this came out. This is gonna be great. Look at the nice finish plates on the end. I'm glad I did that. So if you look like right in there, that's one of the little sections I think I'm gonna get with the razor blade. Let's turn our attention to the other half of this project. Now, I told you that I went to Home Depot, and I saw a couple of things there that caused me to learn. In the directions, I think he bought pre-finished, or he had pre-finished birch veneer plywood, which I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know that you could buy pre-finished, but when I got to Home Depot, they had a whole section there where it was pre-finished. It kind of had like a hard, I don't know, polyurethane coating on it or whatever. And I thought, you know, I don't really want to do that because it's going to get messed up. And I do have a finish in mind that I want to use. And then they had regular birch plywood. And then they had this, which is maple veneer plywood. And I really like maple. I like working with it. I think it's going to be perfect in this application. It was only a few dollars more, and I think it's going to work great. The first step I want to do is to cut the shelf. I think I can put the whole shelf in without cutting it in two pieces. In the directions, they have it in two pieces to get it in there. I don't think you need to do that. I think I can cut it in one. I'm going to be using my circular saw with a guide, an aluminum guide, which I have, which I'm thankful that I have that. And I think we should start marking this piece up for cutting the shelf. The idea here is I want to be able to cut this in half lengthwise, probably right through here, and I want both halves to be supported. So I kind of want to put my 4 sawhorses, so they're going to support the entire piece of wood, but give me a lane to run the skill saw right about here, because this is where I want 14 inches, and I think I want the grain of the wood to go this way, so the shelf and the top are all going to go this way. I mean, I could cut the 14-inch widthwise, but I think that would look kind of funny if the grain on the shelf was going that way and then the top was going the other way, being that this is just going to be stained and polyurethane and not painted. The grain kind of matters, so I think keeping it all in one direction seems to make sense to me. Well, then I think I'm going to get out my new Makita cordless saw here. I haven't ever used this, but I can't think of a better time to do that. And it does have a really nice carbide tip blade on it. Ta-da! Cool. So the next thing I want to do is cut it to length. That is 40 inches, so that should be pretty easy. Man, I like that saw. No cord. That is the greatest thing ever. Sweet. So now I have my shelf, and just going to cut out it gets a little relief in the four corners to fit around the metal uprights. And it's just a 1-inch relief, and we'll do that right now. Measure it up and we'll cut those out. So now that we have our cutouts marked, I think we can go ahead and use our jigsaw and cut this sucker out. Wow, that looks really nice. Wow, look at that. I like it. So I made this little sanding helper to kind of help me sand this a bit. I removed the clamps and did a little bit of scraping for some excess glue, but mostly it was pretty clean. And then I marked the end here where my board goes, because I put this board in through here, which it fits, and then it actually kind of lined up with all of the slots and everything. I sanded it a little bit so it would fit a little bit better, but it actually works in there pretty good. And the next step is to router all the way around the edge. Looking at the plan, I think I kind of want like a 45. Just router a small 45 in it. Being that it's kind of a rectangular piece, angular piece, I think the 45 would look better. Plus that kind of looks like what the plan is. And then the tabletop, since it's round, I'll use a round over bit on the top and the bottom. This one I think I'm just going to do the 45 angle on the top, leave the bottom flat, and go with it there. Now just a quick sand with some 320. Wow, after like 1 minute, that is super smooth, and I removed all of the little marks, pencil marks and whatnot. And so I think we are ready for some finish. So I've got 3 coats of polyurethane on this. It's a lot darker than what's in the magazine. The magazine was kind of just a clear polyurethane finish. This has a little bit of a stain to it. I know it's a little bit different color, but I kind of like it, and I want to keep it that way. It'll match more with the rest of the furniture that's in our house and that's in the area. I completed the shelf and installed it into the unit. It fit nicely right here at an angle. The plan calls for it to be split into 2 pieces, but I didn't think I needed to do that. I think maybe if the slots didn't align well, that might have been easier, but my slots were pretty accurate, so I was able to slip it in there, put it in place, turn the whole unit upside down. These clamps are holding the shelf in place, and I have kind of a cool thing that I thought of. Is I wanted to put on the feet, which I have these little 1-inch diameter feet, and they came with these little short screws. But one of the things I wanted to do was I have to attach the shelf somehow, but I also wanted to maybe reinforce these joints a little bit rather than just glue. Maybe put a mechanical fastener. The plan calls for the foot to go out here on the edge. If I moved it just inboard a little bit, right in line with this piece is a 1-inch diameter, so it fits really nicely on this 1-inch tubing. Right here, right in line with this, and put a screw all the way through. I could use one screw, a nice kind of beefy one like that, to go through this tube, the foot, and the shelf all in one. Just making sure it's not too long so it doesn't go all the way through. But if I was to drill a hole there, it'll basically clamp the whole thing together in one go, and I think that's a pretty neat idea. The first step in this process is I want to clamp the shelf a little bit tighter here, because when I screw through these two tubes and go into the shelf, it's going to tend to want to push the shelf out. I don't want that to happen, so I'm going to bring that up a little bit. Even though I have it clamped there, I'm going to clamp it just temporarily a little bit here. And the next thing I'm going to do is find the center of that tube this way, and make a little mark. If I use my dial calipers on a 1/2 inch, just set it right there and strike a mark. Then I'm going to set it on 1.5 inches, which this is 1 inch in from this tube to this tube. And we can double check that here. Make sure that that's correct. And we have pretty close to 1 inch. I don't think that's too bad. That's pretty neat. And then I want to go in the middle of this tube. So 1 inch plus 1/2, 1.5 inches. You get the idea. And then we're just going to strike a little mark here. And I don't care if I'm marking the tube here a little bit, because that's going to be covered with the foot. The next thing I'm going to do after I find my glasses, just make a little center punch right here. Nice. And I figured that I should drill down to the end of the, what'd you call that? I don't know. Squirrely things. Whatever that is, where the drill part stops. And that's going to go just into the wood just a little bit. And if we look at it here, if we go down to about there, we're just going to kind of touch the wood a little bit just to give the wood a little starting hole. And try to drill nice and straight down. Alright, now real world problem. What happened was that as the drill was going through, it kind of was tending to go, it was following some grain or something, and I didn't want it to do that, so I was pulling the opposite way, and I put too much pressure on it and the drill bit broke. Unfortunately, right flush with this. So what I'm going to try to do, I don't know if tweezers are going to do it. What I did here is I just used the center punch to kind of push down the metal a little bit so that I could get a little bit more of the drill bit out. And then I just was grabbing it and kind of pull it out, kind of crank on it a little bit until I can get more of it out. And then here she comes, dancing beneath the starry skies. I'm going to put a little bit of WD-40 in here because we are going to be cutting some threads, and I think that's a good way to make things go in there a little bit easier. So I'm not going to put the foot on just yet. I'm just going to kind of run this in and out. Put on our foot. And feel the underside did not go through. And that thing is on there. All right, so we'll just do that to the other ones and move on. That's it. Now we have all of our feet, and it didn't go through, but this is all really tightly screwed together. So I think that's going to make it really, really strong. One thing I was a little concerned about is this kind of hanging down like this. See how that's, I don't know. I mean, if you had, this is a shelf, so if you had books and stuff, it's going to be on there, but sure would be nice to put something right in the center there. It's not going to be able to be very tight because I don't want to collapse or bend this tubing. Gonna have to be really careful with that. And then maybe do like a countersink to sink it flat so it doesn't really show. I don't want like a big screw sticking out of there. So let's see what we can come up with. So let's start by measuring the center of this. 36, so 18. Put it right on 18. I just recently bought these little clamps and they are so handy. I've just been using them all the time. It's amazing when you get something and it's like, how did I ever live without it? I set my tape here at 1.25 inches, and so that will give the, and it's a bigger bit, so we're gonna have a lot more clearance because this is a non-threaded section. So I was really careful when I was going through the second side of metal that I really eased up on the pressure and just let it cut nice and slowly, because I did not want to go whomp all the way through because it would go all the way through to the front side there, and that would not be cool. Use as a guide. If I want to check, I can kind of put it upside down here and see, oh, that looks really nice. Okay, and I saw how the metal was bending down a little bit, letting me know that it tightened up. And we can release the clamps and clean off the chips. And I think that worked great. Now I'll just do the whole procedure right here on the other side. And if we kind of look carefully, the screw head sort of pulled the metal down and made a dimple and almost made it flush. Now, focus, like right here. It's almost flush if you if you put it down like that. So I think that would be pretty much invisible when it's in place. All right, I think that just about does that. If I turn this over and then are ready to work on the top. And so that's going to be that piece of wood right there. That's next.